This is going to be a masterpiece if we see this on the board. Played
Queen
on
G5.
the board, and Queen G5.
And there's also Queen takes C5 after Knight H5.
And this was the opening move of this Speed Chess Championship semi-final game, played by Denis the Magnus Menace Lazovic, a youngster from Belarus looking to take down the world's elite. And Magnus Caterpillarson responds with pawn to e6, a French defense invitation, not obliged. We see the explosive c4. They're playing in a studio in London, early February 2026, but they're online. They get a second back per move and they start with 3 minutes each. I've got this game to bring you and then another cracker, 4 brilliancies to come between the two games. In fact, 6 if I remember correctly, and we count both players. Magnus now plays a Benoni defense. Now this is risky at the highest levels of chess because you give white the entire center. I mean, the opening translates as son of my sorrow or something like that, right? You're very sad when you play it. White's got the whole center, doesn't even let you get b5. That's really, really mean.
He's a very naughty boy!
Now we see the pony develop into the game. Denis so impressed he copies, castles, bishop d3, and one of the challenges for black here, knight bd7 on the board, is that you've got less space and less active pieces. You know, this is slightly more advanced than this guy. This bishop's a bit stuck. Sometimes if you develop it, the pawn gets weak, various issues. But black's going for kind of weirdness, wackiness, freak out the opponent later in the game, maybe play on the clock, stick your knight on the edge of the board like you're an absolute patzer who just picked up the pieces. Mind games galore, Carlsen. Bishop g5 hits the queen, no time to Botez gambit, saved, and with the bishop blocking. You could have gone queen e8, queen c7. There are various challenges with those moves. I mean, this one's looking incredibly passive. So the bishop blocks, slightly clumsy looking, but don't take it. Generally speaking, if you're the side with the space, you want to avoid piece exchanges. Your opponent has less room to maneuver. And look at this stinker. Rook e8, bishop e2. Now X-ray attacks it. So what do we get? First b6. And after knight h2, Magnus goes for the absolutely smelliest knight g7. A fianchettoed knight is something to be ashamed of. Never, never play it if you can avoid it, unless you're really good and you have a maneuver plan. Dad is absolutely ashamed. What on earth was all of that university education for? You're back in with me. We now see knight g4 hitting this bishop on f6. It takes on c3 there. Pawn recaptures. Sometimes laugh at my own jokes. Someone's got to, right? And Magnus picks up a pawn in the centre here. He's won to the good, but Denis has the legendary bishop bear here. They're raking across the board, and queen d2 really starts to highlight some dark squared issues. Magnus tries to shut down this chocolate slide. Lord Hansfeingold never approves of such moves. You lift the kimono, however you pronounce that word. Rook fe1 is played, and the knight centralizes. Hits a couple of minors. You could actually take, apparently, and g4. I don't know. This looks really natural. Giving that king a little tickle. Slides to f8 there. And now Denis makes a mistake. And this is the thing about such openings. Fine, you might be better on paper, but you got to prove it. Bishop e2 is a good move. Bishop f1 is played. What's the subtle difference? Is he being punished because it looks like he's setting up for the next game with his tail between his legs? No, that's not the reason. Magnus misses the reason and plays a mini rook lift, preparing to swing. Denis once again misses the tactical shot that black has here, pushes on with the pawn, and this time Magnus finds it. Can you guess the move here? What's a killer shot for black? It's Bishop takes on h3. Something very satisfying about it being the first move that piece ever made. And a key question is what if f4? But first let's ask the obvious. Why can't you take the bishop? You just left control of this square. Knight gallops in and it picks up the lady. So let's run back out of the back cave here. What if you start with pawn f4? Kick the knight away, then take the bishop. Well, the problem here is knight g4. So well done if you saw this subtle nuance to the variation. And the point is, you're hitting a knight. So now if you try and take the bishop, fine, but black wins a knight. So you've each got a minor piece, but black also got a pawn. Lovely access to the f5 square, horrible structure. The bishops are impotent here. So let's run back. f4, knight g4, takes, takes. So what if instead takes, knight on g4? Well, then the bishop saves itself with that tempo away from the attack. Again, you've won a pawn. Again, you're fine. So the tactics are working for black. So Danish plows on over that other side of the board there. Can't stop saying Danish. I need to go back to school, do my phonics like my 4-year-old. Takes his played on a5, gets the brilliancy. Rather generous. It's just about the fact that there's still a piece hanging, but it's still immune, so it doesn't really count. Rook recaptures here, and now Magnus makes a mistake himself. He should play knight f5. Moving this rook across, also a decent move, but this is best because you hit this bishop, which is actually participating in a lot of attacks. And if white takes, which is the best move, then the bishop recaptures, escapes the attack, and the knight on h6 is no longer looming over the ramparts, plus the king's not boxed in by its own knight on f7, g7, sorry. So let's run back. Best move, not played. Magnus backs up, and once again, he gets deservedly punished for backing up to the starting square like an absolute wuss, as though he's setting up for the next game. Dennis plays rook takes on c5, the first of 2 rook sacrifices. Where was Gotham Chess in the studio? At this moment we had Aman Hambleton, and why am I drawing a blank on his name? I'm so tired this evening. It's going to really wind me up. The guy in the cap, Eric Hansen. You know you're tired when you can't remember a name like Eric. By the way, he's the guy who started the butt plug rumour all those years ago. Fun fact for you. Chess 101 facts out here. Takes is played. Bishop takes on c5. Check and hitting a rook. And so it intercepts. So it's understandable sacking the piece if you immediately won back the rook. But now that it intercepts there, what's the follow-up point? How do you now break through? This is unreal. This is the second. What did he play? Rook takes on e5. And the audience are literally applauding at this point. Everyone's having a meltdown over in London there. Takes wasn't best. Knight e6 was. But okay, this is the natural move. Here's the killer. Bang. And you're actually threatening a mate in 1. Because the king can't move anywhere and the rook can't block. It's pinned. And you just can't move anything except stupid moves like queen d6, queen b6. They're the top moves. So this was desperately tried, covering the f6 square, given a bit of room, but takes on e5. The chef's kiss, Pierre de Resistance, about to checkmate down on the h8 square. And you just can't fight against it. There's absolutely nothing. So we saw resigns here in the face of mate in 2. You know, this is one of the best moves. If you try and cover that diagonal once more, like this, then we checkmate on f6 once more. So Dennis is the one smashing. Dennis is the one getting the audience applauding, not Magnus, but obviously he's on the thumbnail because Magnus sells newspapers. Now let's jump to one more because this was an absolute smash and grab. Dennis isn't done. Playing with white. This is in the bullet portion. 1 minute each plus a second back per move. That's known as excrement in the business. Magnus now plays an absolute shocker. Pawn d6. Oh, yucky. This wins an entire piece, because after bishop b7 there's pawn d5 and there's a pin. It's just a straight loss of a piece. It resigns, but missed. Dennis sets up the great wall of menace. Now we see queen d7, knight f3, castles queenside, castles. Now what's the point of this weird move? Not just to castle queenside, but watch this. Pressure applied to the doubled pawn, classic positional play with the black pieces, and the queen now triple whammies it. So that's why the knight drops back and defends. Magnus goes on the attack. Great play in a blitz game. There he goes. The rook lifts into the game, kicks that queen back out of dodge. Now knight f3, and Magnus goes the distance here. Forces g3, at least if you want to keep the lines closed. Forces. This is called a thorn pawn. Thorn in the side. Very painful. Now we see this knight dropping back here. Apparently not quite the right move order, though in general it's a move that very often gets played very soon. An immediate knight g5 could come. Not played. Now f6 fights against it. Maybe that's why Magnus lost these two games. The terrible pawn f6. d5 is good here. Kicking the queen back horrendously. Putting her in jail. Rook fb1 selected though. e5 from Magnus. Takes. Pawn takes. Again d5's very strong. Not played. This motif instead. Still good for white though. What a centre. A trio of dragons guided down the board by Daenerys here. White's having fun. Centre's under fire, but not collapsing. Covered. d5 played. And the camel toe pawn formation actually forces the queen backwards, but not into jail. Because you didn't do it sooner, and the knight moved, the queen finds a better square here. Knight e6 is strong, but this is blitzed out, and how good is that for attacking chess from Dennis? That is the star move of the game almost. Cracking up that king position. Bishop's about to drop on a6, so takes on d3. Queen recaptures, pawn takes, and now what's the move? The absolute smasheroo. Bishop takes on c5, of course. And it's literally immune. It's not like there's some big attack that comes slowly. No, it's checkmate in uno. So you cannot touch the bishop. So in the game, knight b7. I mean, there's some real recurring themes here. Never play f6. Never fianchetto your knight. Never retreat your bishop to the starting square. Don't follow my advice, by the way. Sometimes they can all be good. Now we see bishop e3. Always play king b8, except when it's a question mark. The queen now slides in. The writing's on the wall. Kamikaze in a knight is best, but not played. Magnus goes for this one here. And an immediate rook a4 is already very strong. But this was played. Hits a rook, which doesn't move. You know, Magnus completely correctly just goes for the play. Break up the centre. Look for some weirdness down here. Who knows, right? But Dennis now comes up with another thunderbolt. Finishes the game with a double back-to-back brilliancy here. And it's not knight takes d8. It's knight takes c7. Brilliancy. Because after queen takes, what's the final move? Wham, bam, slam. A swashbuckling finish by Dennis. I cannot say my S's or sh sound tonight. This would be the finish if Magnus had taken. King's in check and can't move. So you have to start blocking. And you have to start getting checkmated. Here's one sample line. So this was the final move of the game. Now, although Dennis won these two games, he did comfortably lose the match. But I wanted to showcase some of his attacking prowess and talent. Really incredible. Thanks a lot for watching. And have a look at the unbelievable game on screen. Played between Arjun and young Yaz. Unbelievable stuff. Hope to see you soon. Cheers.